Hey there, sports fans. Welcome to the 10 Yards Back podcast. 6 again episode for round 7 of the Betfred Super League season 2025. How are you? I'm good. I am good. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, just be aware that there is another option available for you guys. Yet now available in audio only on Spotify, 10 Yards Back over there. YouTube, of course, 10 Yards Back if you want to see the clips, the pictures that I spend ages putting together. So, how are we doing? Round 7. How was it for you? It was okay for me, to be honest. It was a good round-ish. To be honest, half the round was a good round, wasn't it? We had a couple of good games there. We had a couple of good games, and I think it's a good thing that the good games didn't really if you'd have showed those games to me 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been that bothered. So the games I'm talking about, my games of the weekend, my half of the weekend was Saints versus Wakefield, Hull KR the Robins versus Wigan, and Warrington versus Hull FC. I thought those were like the picks of the weekend coming into the round. 3 years ago, no one was asked about those games because they were going to be walkovers. So I think that's real good progress, and they were good games as well. So if we just do like a roundup, Leeds versus Salford on Thursday. It was always going to go one way, wasn't it? Poor old Salford. 28-0 to Leeds. Saints versus Wakefield, 26-14 to Saints. Edging that one at the end there, which I'll come to shortly. Hull KR versus Wigan. Wigan got the better of Hull KR there, 28-12. 28-16 Hull FC versus Warrington. 20-6 Lee versus Castleford. And 38-18 Catalans Dragons versus Huddersfield. Still no win in the Huddersfield camp, which is kind of sad, because if you watched that game, that Catalans Huddersfield game, they really did show quite a lot of promise. One of the best tries I've seen in a while. Gagai on, I think it was about 20 minutes in, scored an absolute belter of a try. It was a solo effort, but it was a group of solo efforts getting him up there. So, to me, it's kind of like a team of stars effort, if that makes any sense at all. So poor old Huddersfield, hopefully they get their win soon, because it's turned into a bit of a London situation, isn't it? All right, well, talking about the fixtures, that brings me to my first talking point for the weekend. My first 6 again, my 1 again. Hull KR, the Robins, the mighty Robins, lose their O. Their O had to go on Friday. Hull KR versus Wigan, 28-12. Like I said there, I was actually at another game that night, trying to avoid the score all night, and I was in the lounge. Oh, yeah, in the lounge, and they had the screens on. So I was kind of just walking around looking shifty, trying to avoid the score, because I really did want to catch that up. But at the end of the match, you just couldn't you couldn't avoid it. They basically, I turned to my wife, I said, well, they're only interviewing Wigan players now, so I guess Wigan must have won. And someone else just went, 28-12. Wow, 28 points to 12 there. Oh, had to go. Now, I have mixed feelings on this, because on the one hand, I like that Hull KR are dominant. What they've been doing has been a bit of a mystery. Like, when I've been looking at these games and how Hull KR are going to win, it's not been obvious. They've actually seemed to be using different strategies for every team, which sounds like what you should do, sounds obvious. But not everybody does it. Hull KR seem to be doing it. I think what happened on Friday really was perhaps just a little bit of star power, lacking a bit of star power, lacking a bit of direction with Mikey Lewis down the middle. Wigan are obviously a big, tough side, and they were just missing that direction, I think. So the fact that they've lost, they're not out. They're still top of the league. They're still 2 points clear. No, I think 1 point clear. I can't remember now. They're still clear anyway at the top. But I must be honest, I do like the fact that they're not undefeated anymore because, and this is going to sound hypocritical because if my team were undefeated, I wouldn't be saying it. But I think we're past the age of the undefeated team, if that makes sense. I think that since 2017, when Castleford basically stormed the league, there's been a team at the top. Like there's been a very clear team to beat at the top, and that tends to dominate the headlines going into the weekend. Hull KR are screaming, obviously this team aren't going to win. Here's how they might win. Blah blah blah. When there are other games to preview, to be excited for. So the fact they've lost I do like it. I'll be honest. I thought it was Wigan. Yeah, all right. They needed one, didn't they? Wigan. They've had a couple of losses there, and I think, to be honest, one thing that I will praise Wigan for in that game was their scrum play. So about 20 minutes into the game, they pulled off a screaming try from a scrum, which I think more teams need to do. It's like we have this scrum and no one ever does anything with it except Wigan. I think we all need to learn from that. Warrington pretended they were going to do something from a scrum this weekend and set themselves up in a weird way, and then just never did anything. But anyway, scrums, welcome back. Hull KR lose their O. Number one. All right, number two. Keenan Palacios, or Palacia, however you want to say that, however he would rather you say that, because I definitely say it how he tells you to. His record card. I think it's a record. I'm going to go out there and say it's a record. Keenan Palacia got a yellow card 16 seconds into the game against Salford on Thursday night. 16 seconds. There are a couple of other kind of really short cards that are in my mind. The Ben Flower one, the grand final, obviously is a famous one, with Lancer High knocking him out. There was another one which I'm not sure if it competes for this. Maybe my memory's wrong. I've done no research on it. I think it was 2016, maybe 2017. Saints versus Wigan, Good Friday derby match at Wigan, the then DW Stadium. I think Kyle Amor got a red card, like on one of the first tackles of the game, but I don't think it was as good as Palacios here. He was really committed to that 16-second yellow card. It was a shoulder to the head. The referee says there's mitigation. Seems like there's mitigation for everything now. We haven't seen a red card yet this season. There's mitigation for everything. He was sent off for the exact same thing in their league loss, their narrow league loss against Warrington in the league 2 weeks before. So we shouldn't have done that. He's got to calm it down. I mean, shoulders to the head are the dirtiest looking tackle as well. Like I've said before, whether or not you meant to do it, it looks like you meant to do it. So just be careful with those shoulders to the head, especially 16 seconds into a game that, all right, you were always going to win. Sneed, number 3, Sneed's kicks. This is a weird one, and I have to preface this by saying I'm not just slagging him off in this number 3 here. Mark Sneed's kicks. Mark Sneed, obviously, in my mind, I can comfortably say he's the best kicker of the Super League generation. And I think everyone would agree with that. The thing that just pisses me off a little bit when I do say that is that Stefan Ratchford, maybe not last year, the year before, held some kind of record for consecutive kicks. He was about to break the world record for consecutive kicks. So it's hard to say that Mark Sneed is the best kicker when you've got that sort of datum of Stefan Ratchford that can argue with that. I forget how many kicks it was that he got in succession, but it was a real good number of kicks. But anyway, Mark Sneyd, if he's kicking a goal, you know it's going over, right? On Saturday afternoon, 5:30 kickoff, lovely. Sneyd had the opportunity of 4 conversions because Warrington scored 4 tries. He missed all 4. They were edge tries, you know. Anybody else would have missed them as well. It wasn't like it was some special, oh, what's going on? Was he throwing this or whatever? Which, now that you mention it, it was against Hull FC, and I haven't had any conspiracy theories yet, so I'm going to start one. He threw those kicks. But the reason I'm bringing this up isn't just because, Mark Sneyd's a dead good kicker and he missed some. It's because at 61 and 68 minutes, those 2 tries came pretty close order. He kicked the ball, and I watched him kick them and think, oh, way up, we got a ball game on our hands here, boys. But the flags went down as if he hadn't kicked them. Both times this happened. Both times I was sure they went over. He was sure they went over, which, all right, he would be. But the commentators were also sure they went over. John Wells claimed to have behind the posts view, which doesn't seem like the best view for a commentator. But yeah, imagine that. Imagine kicking a goal and it just getting waved off. Now, I think, to be fair, they got 2 linesmen over there adjudicating the kicks. Why bother having 2 linesmen, giving the flag up or wave it off? Why bother having that if they're both going to do it at the exact same time? I reckon it needs to be like that prisoner experiment where you got one behind the other, and the one at the back needs to lift his first or hers first, and then the one at the front does it, so that they might disagree and, all right, let's have a look at the video, because you never get a video ref on a kick, do you? I'm not even sure if you can challenge a captain's challenge a kick. It'd be a very fringe one to do. But it was very odd. I was 99% sure that both those kicks went through. To the point where the first one, hey, we got a game on our hands. Second one, all right, yeah, at least he's put that one to bed, and then chalked off again. Very weird situation. That was Mark Sneyd. All right, number 4. This is something I've sort of thought of for a while, and so I'm going to bring it up now as a 6 again for the weekend, because it was quite egregious the week, or quite obvious, I thought, at the weekend. The game of 2 halves scenario. So if we look at the scores again, some comfortable wins, some edge wins, teams won, right? But if you look at the half-time scores, they tell a very different story. So, the first one, Leeds versus Salford, 28-0. All right, everyone saw that coming. Half-time, it's 6-0. So, at that point, you're thinking, hey, Salford are in this. A try, a drop goal maybe, 2 tries, a penalty. We could do that. They could do this, the lads. Obviously, Salford's a very young team. You can see them gassing out in the second half. Fine. All right. Maybe we'll chalk that one off. Maybe that's not so weird. Saints, 26-14 final score. 20-0 the halftime score. Wakefield came screaming back into that game. Saints did score a try in the second half. But only when you compare that second half performance to the first half, in the first half they were going to win everything. Like, that's how good they were. They were connected. They were a team. They were telepathic almost. Second half, what happened, lads? Hull KR 28-12. The Warriors. The Rovers, Hull KR, they were winning at halftime 12-6, which means that the top of the league team were nilled in the second half. And I hate saying this, oh, they won the second half, but I mean, they did, and they won the game in the end of it. But what's going on? I mean, we could go through it. The Hull FC one is also a pretty egregious version of this as well. 28-16, the final score for Hull. They were basically nilled in that second half as well. A penalty. All right, great. 28-16 from 26-4. But what's going on? I want to know what's going on. Why are teams switching off? Maybe it's a defensive thing. Maybe it's a strategy. I don't know. I'd like to know. Or what gets said in that dressing room at half-time to these teams? Like, what the hell did Matty Pete and Sam Burgess and Daryl Powell say at half-time to make their team just go, yeah, you know what, you're right. I'm going to get in this game. Game of two halves. It's worth looking out for, because I remember that there have been teams over the years that get called second half teams. Saints, classic example. 2018, 2019, they were a second half team, and it was weird to watch because they were doing well, but never at half time. And weird one. All right, number 5, the Ashes. The Ashes is back, ladies and gentlemen, and I had to bring it up because everyone's talking about it. Everyone's excited. England versus Australia in, I think, a time when this could actually bode well for England. We've got a smattering of talent over in the NRL. A couple of Aussies pledging their allegiance over here. So, Victor Radley, for example, is probably going to be our starting loose. We've got Herbie Farnworth, just seems to be killing it over there at centre. He's going to come over and play centre for us. Dom Young on the wing, just a fucking massive fella on the wing. And we've also got our own Super League talent over here. The likes of Nasemba. Morgan Knowles going to stand in there at loose forward, I'm sure. Jack Wellesby, probably at fullback. It's a team of stars at this point, isn't it? The England team, Matty Ashton on the other wing, of course, but likely. And it's at a point where the NRL seems to be a little bit less predictable these days. A couple of years ago, maybe 2 seasons ago now, you looked at the NRL at the weekend, the scores, and it was always like 40 points to 0 or something like that. There were just those teams that were just standing out above the rest. It seems like everything's calmed down over there a little bit now. The Panthers are struggling, the stalwarts, the Four Peats, let's say the Australian St Helens, the Penrith Panthers are struggling a little bit these days, which gives the impression that everything's evening out and this Ashes series could be great. What I'm worried about is that actually what's happening is that Australian players are just getting better and they're kind of matching each other, and that our humble pub league, as they call it, is staying the same. We've still got the same teams at the top, roughly. But the reason I bring up the Ashes isn't because it's exciting, isn't because we're looking forward to it, which we are. It's because there are 3 game series of the Ashes. One in Headingley, Leeds Stadium, sold out immediately before tickets even went on sale. To who? I don't really understand who the priority tickets were going to, but Headingley sold out. Great stadium, fantastic atmosphere. It's going to be a good game. That's the final game of the series. Game 2 is at the brand spanking new Everton Stadium. I think we might even be taking the plastic off that. That might be the first game over there in Everton on the docks. A stadium so good that Liverpool chose to sacrifice its UNESCO World Heritage status for it. So we got Leeds, Liverpool, and Everton. The Liverpool game is sold out also, completely sold out, those 2 games. And then the first game of the series, to kick it all off, we go to Wembley on, I think, the 25th of October. It's consecutive weeks after that. We kick it off at Wembley. And I'm sure for Australians, it's going to be cool to play at Wembley. Some of them will have played there before, I'm sure, in like the World Cup, for example, when it was over here. My question is, though, why'd you do that? Liverpool and Leeds sold out immediately. Wembley, there's tickets everywhere. We can't even get that rugby league sold out just now. Now, I know. We're in April. The series is in October. Calm down, Jim. We've got time. We need time for people to decide whether they're going to make the trip to Wembley. And that's going to probably rely on a couple of things. Does your team go to Wembley for the Challenge Cup? Well, we know some teams aren't going to go there now. Does your team go to Old Trafford? Do you fancy? I mean, there's just a lot of day trips out, and the Challenge Cup day down in Wembley. At least you can kind of, fingers crossed, we're going to get the weather. It's going to be in August or May. It's going to be in summer. A trip down to London on the 25th of October on a what is probably a 50-50 game of not your team entirely, your international team, and I'll probably talk about my views on the international game at some point. Seems like an odd choice. It seems neglectful. It seems like it's probably actually a pretty big stadium bill for the RFL when it can't really afford to be doing that. There's other stuff going on that they need to pay for. Now, if you ask me where they should have done it, I don't know. I don't know where they should have done it. But Wembley seems a little bit neglectful to me to do that. Tickets are still available. Anyway, go buy them. Number 6. All right, considering I just had a little bit of a moan about the Ashes there, I'm going to end on a positive, as I like to do. Number 6, debutants. Now, we had a couple of, I'm going to say pseudo debuts over the weekend. Catalans Dragons had 2 players debut for them, whose names I can't pronounce. And so I'll put them up on the screen there. Fullback and a centre or a winger, I can't remember. They were kind of switching throughout the game, to be honest, but they both had a great game. Guillermo, French name, kicked all of his goals, which was fantastic. His name got on the score sheet a lot there against Huddersfield. And Deraforte, I don't know, man. I'm not going to try that again. The other lad, the slightly bigger lad, scored a try even. Scored a try and got fucking cleaned out in doing it by Hewitt. Not a very nice yellow card to get that there from Hewitt. A bit rude, actually. But the debutants, my main debutant for the weekend that I'm going to bring up, because those guys did well, okay, and they're French, and we should support that. It also seems like do French kids practice any other position than fullback? Because it seems like every time some French kid comes through, Morgue, Rouget, they're always fullbacks. This Guillermo guy, fullback. Even the Deraforte guy, whatever his name is, he was kind of playing fullback too. So yeah, I mean, what is it with French people and fullbacks? It's a good position, all right, yeah, but weird on that. Anyway, but my debutante of the weekend, and this is why I say he's a pseudo debutante, is George Whitby of St Helens. St Helens had a bit of a nightmare at the weekend. Wakefield are a team up and coming this year, definitely a threat. And they were missing Lomax, Darryl Clark. They were missing a lot of that drive in the middle. A bit of a reshuffle. George Whitby, cometh the hour, cometh the man, steps up into that Johnny Lomax number 7 position. Jack Wellsby was playing standoff next to him. And the reason I bring him up, he didn't score any tries. He kicked 5 kicks, though. Didn't score any tries, but he was connected to every try that Saints did score. Now, I was at that game, so I got to see a little bit more than the Sky cameras would have allowed, probably would have focused on. What I'll say about George Whitby is, in that game anyway, maybe it's just fire in his belly because he's new. It's his debut, pseudo debut. He has played before. He was kicking perfectly. He knew exactly where he wanted to kick it and when, and he wasn't just going for the same kick all the time. Lewis Murphy was the beneficiary early on. That didn't quite come off. And so he changed it. He started grubbering it along the floor a little bit. He ran the ball to the line. He ran it close to the line and passed it a la Lomax. And he put up a stint in defence as well. He reminded me of one of my favourite halfbacks of the Super League generation, Theo Farge, again, of Catalans. I think he's one to watch. I was very pleased and happy and glad to see a good English halfback coming through there. And I'll be honest, if you look at him, if you look at this Whitby kid, this Georgie, he's so young. Like, he looks so young. I don't know how old he actually is, but he looks so young. Like, to put up a performance like that on your debut, like looking like a fucking man boy, good on you, George. I can't wait to see what he becomes, who he becomes, what position he finally settles on. Is he going to be a kicking scrum half, or is he going to be a running standoff? I don't know. It's all possible for him at this point. And I think that's good. We've got so many teams out there nowadays importing halfbacks, which obviously Saints have done as well in Tristan Saylor. But it's good to see one of our own, a young lad, coming through and doing really well. All right. So that is my 6 again for the week. We've seen the Ashes. We've seen George Whitby, the man boy. Mark Sneed's kicks. Games of 2 halves. Palacia's naughty record. And Hull KR lose there. Oh, baby. So I'm not going to go through the try scorers this week. We all know who they are. It's Rivals Round coming up, everyone. Or as we used to call it, Easter weekend. Rivals Round. There's a couple of rivalries there, but I think to call it Rivals Round is a bit rich. And I'm excited because for the first time in my memory, we've got a bloody good Friday lined up, haven't we? Hull FC versus Hull KR kicking off at midday, that first match of the day. That's first versus second. That's 1 versus 2. I think if Hull FC win that game, they go top. That's massive stakes on a game that I generally don't care about. So that's amazing. Saints versus Wigan. Doesn't matter where they are on the table. Everyone's always going to watch that. And then on Saturday, another one to watch. I think it's an R5 kickoff again for the Wolves. Warrington versus Lee. That's going to be a good game as well. Warrington going to be sore after this weekend against Hull FC. Looking to put it right. Lee, they're storming again by the looks of it. Bloody Ipape is unstoppable. Lamb slippery. What's going to happen? Let's find out. Right, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Head over to the Spotify, head over to YouTube, whichever it is. Like, subscribe. I'll see you next week.